Windhelm is known as the City of Kings and quite possibly the very oldest city of man in Tamriel. It is located in the coldest region of Skyrim, a fact that is never forgotten to the Dragonborn as every NPC in this place keeps reminding him. The game makes it so that snow seems to fall at a higher rate in here than in any other region in the game. In fact, many of the sailors that travel through the cold reaches of the ocean claim that there is something about Windhelm that makes it so dark, gloomy, and chilly. You could say that only the toughest and roughest of all the Nords would actually enjoy living here. Well, that and the immigrants coming from Morrowind who otherwise have no choice. This city is a broken city, with Argonians forbidden to enter the walls, Dark Elves who live in squalor in the Grey Quarter, and Nords who feel like their god is being taken away from them, and are willing to die merely out of principle. I have made a small list of 5 things you probably didn't know about this mysterious city, so without further ado, let's start counting. Number 1. Angra Noir, once honored, is a beggar like many others. He, however, suffers from what seems to be a common occurrence with Nords that fight and lose but survive. He lost everything in the Great War against the Almeri Dominion and became a beggar, at which point he joined the Stormcloaks to fight for what he believed in, but was stabbed in the back by an Imperial, having the sword go directly through his chest. Now, Angra Noir doesn't have any inherent dirty secret or mind-blowing factoid about him, more just some very intriguing differences between him and other beggars. You see, Angra Noir is the only beggar in the game that can be married, and the way you go about courting him is actually quite hilarious. Normally you're supposed to perform a quest for a potential marriage candidate, and after doing that someone a favor, your reputation with them increases to the point where marriage becomes a possibility. Angra Noir, on the other hand, doesn't actually have a quest. What you do instead is interesting. All Angra Noir requires for his body to be yours is to give him a gold coin. That's it. Sometimes all it takes is for you to drop a piece of clothing on the ground, have him pick it up, and offer him to keep it when he asks. You could say Angra Noir is actually the ultimate gold digger, just happy being with you as long as you feed him and buy him things. Interestingly enough, when you finish the quest Innocence Lost and kill Drelok the Kind, Angra Noir obtains a key to the Aretino residence. It's never explicitly said why he does so, but it's always understood to me to mean that Angra Noir would actually end up adopting Aventus and live in his house, giving both otherwise sad characters a very happy ending. Number 2. The great city of Windhelm is a place of history. Lots and lots of history, in fact. It was none other than the great Ysgramor that actually built this place. When the humans from Admora first settled in Old Skyrim, the Snow Elves from that time attacked and killed them all. It is believed that only Ysgramor and his sons survived. They went back to Admora and brought an army to avenge their kin. This army was known as the 500 Companions. They came and pretty much obliterated the Snow Elves, forcing them underground and turning them into what is now known as the Falmer. Now, you probably already knew that, but what you might not know is that Ysgramor and the avenging humans actually used Snow Elves as slaves, and with the help of slave labor, they built Windhelm. They built the city where the river met the sea, on top of the grave of one of Ysgramor's sons. The city was supposed to be a monument to mankind, especially against elves. He made it an impenetrable fortress, as you can see in this concept art for Windhelm. He designed it so that the only way you could get in would be through an incredibly long bridge so that no elf could sneak into the city and avenge his kin. You can tell here on concept arts that they built the city in typical Admoran fashion. That is, what you would find on the ancient Nordic ruins, those that used to be governed by the dragon priests. There is a lot of animal motifs, especially that of dragons. As you all know, the dragon was at the very top of the hierarchy in the ancient Nordic belief system. You even see that here in Ysgramor's concept art, with draconic heads protruding from the helmet combined with what seems to be a touch of draconic scales that adorn the back of the cloak. This is an incredible piece of concept art and my personal favorite, the art of Windhelm Castle. The barracks and the dungeon at the very base of the keep, with what I can only surmise is probably a hawk representing Kine or Kinareth at the very top of the wizard's tower. The hawk was one of the most important animals in the pantheon for the ancient Nords, specifically for Ysgramor, since it was Ysgramor who said that a Nord's honor does not come from how he lives, but it comes from how he dies. You can see this in the game when Nords say that you can really only get to Sovngarde if you have what they deem an honorable death, regardless of what kind of shit you did during your life. It is important to know this because Kine, the hawk, is actually the one who holds your hand during the afterlife and takes you into Sovngarde. Remember that this city was also built on top of the grave of Ysgramor's son, and it held what was by then the biggest and most glorious of crypts in the known world. So glorifying the god that takes you into the afterlife made a lot of sense, and also the art is just really cool. Number 3. The story of the Shattershield family in Windhelm is a tragic one. When the Dragonborn first arrives in the city, it is discovered that there is a murderer on the loose, and its first victim was Friga Shatter-Shield. Friga comes from a very wealthy family, in fact, one of the 2 main families in Windhelm. The clan Shattershield is actually the owner of a successful competitor to the East Empire Trading Company here in the city. They are kind of a big deal. When you go to Windhelm and you see all those Argonians working hard and not getting paid much, living in that assemblage in terrible living conditions, well, that's actually the Shattershield family doing that to them. The patriarch of the family, Torbjorn, is not a very good man and takes advantage of his workers. In fact, Torbjorn hired a group of pirates called the Bloodhorkers to take care, in quotes, of the East Empire Company in Windhelm, a plot that was discovered and thwarted by the Dragonborn. Case in point, many people in the city claim that the family is cursed. Friga was murdered by the Butcher of Windhelm, a serial killer on the loose. This caused both the mother and the sister of Friga to become cynical about life, and the whole family to start to delve into alcoholism. Normally, this would be as far as it goes, since there is no other quest in Windhelm that continues the story. Well, fortunately for us, and unfortunately for the Shattershield family, there is a friend of the family that is looking for revenge in the opposite side of the province, all the way in Markarth. Muiri grew up with Nilsine Shattershield and used to be a great friend of the family. However, a thief and scoundrel named Alain Dufont took advantage of the affections given by Muiri and the mourning of the Shattershield family after the death of Friga. He got close to Muiri in order to steal money and valuables from the Shattershield family, including a priceless family heirloom. Alain, having stolen all this, diverted the blame to Muiri and ran away with the goods, causing the Shattershields to banish Muiri from the city in disgrace. Muiri would then plan her revenge by summoning the Dark Brotherhood not only to kill Alain Dufont, but also to kill Nilsine Shattershield for banishing her from the city. Killing Nilsine is, of course, a side optional portion of the Morning Never Comes quest, so you can choose not to do it. However, if you do it and you kill Nilsine, something very interesting happens. You might have already known all of this simply by doing the quests and paying attention to the character dialogues, but what you might not know is that if you do end up killing Nilsine, then Tova Shatter-Shield, the matron of the family, does something drastic. Not being able to cope with the death of her 2 daughters, she writes a letter and commits suicide. You can find her corpse at the top of the floor of the inn after completing the Dark Brotherhood quest. Her decision explained in the suicide note that she leaves behind. This event is kind of a secret, as it is extremely easy to miss, but it concludes the sad story and the complete removal of what was once a powerful and old family. Number 4. There is a cool museum in Windhelm, a place called Calixtus' House of Curiosities. In here you can find a plethora of curious items, ranging from enormous skulls to items of legendary value. You see, Calixto and his sister inherited an enormous amount of money, and with the help of that money, they traveled the world. Being adventurers, they collected a lot of cool items, and once they settled down, they figured that they could showcase these items for the world to see. Now, the Dragonborn can be offered a very quick rundown of the items in the House of Curiosities, including 3 objects that bring the attention from the player. The first is the Book of Fate. According to Calixto, the words displayed on the pages of the book reveal the destiny of the reader, and because of this, the words change with each person. When the Dragonborn opens it, the pages are blank. Calixto speculates that it is possible that the Dragonborn is special, as in, he is a unique individual whose destiny is not pre-written. a person that can actually change fate. Or maybe, just maybe, the Dragonborn has already accomplished his destiny, and there is nothing else but death. The second object is a pipe that, according to Calixto, after using a special command phrase, the pipe activates, and when it does, it'll make people dance uncontrollably, no matter the peril. However, Calixto refuses to activate it, claiming it to be far too dangerous. The last object is Ysgramor's soup spoon, Calixto claiming that Ysgramor was such a badass that he used to drink soup with a fork, a feat in and of itself. Now these items are lies, simple props to wow the common folk and take their money, but you probably already figured that one out. What you might not know is how we can prove it. There is in actuality a real Book of Fate. In fact, it is mentioned a few times over during the course of all the games. In Elder Scrolls Arena, Emperor Uriel Septim VII asked the champion to read from the book in order to determine its destiny. And Asura mentions it during Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Both of these events let us know that the book actually does exist. However, the book is known to exist within the Arcane University in the Great Imperial City. It lies in a secret room far from the eyes of the public. Hence, more than likely, this cake is a lie. The dancer's flute is actually kind of a mystery, but more than likely, it being a mystery actually helps us realize that it is probably a fake. What I mean by that is that there is simply no mention of this artifact anywhere within the lore of the Elder Scrolls, at least not in the main games. I don't particularly play Elder Scrolls Online, but the fact that such an item doesn't seem to exist indicates to me that this is probably just an invention from the mind of Calixto. Most probably not only to fool people into paying him money, but to also cover his grand lie. Calixto is actually the murderer that is loose within the city, and he uses this museum as a cover. Now the soup spoon is a little bit more obvious. I mean, it is a little ridiculous and by far the less believable of all the items. The way you actually can tell that it's a fake is by actually stealing it. You see, Calixto will actually replace the item if it is stolen, signifying that he does in fact own a lot of copies of this prop just in case. What a farce. Number 5. Elder Scrolls Skyrim is an immense game, and it required tens of thousands of collective hours to be made. But even still, there's bound to be content that was dropped for the sake of time and quality. One such example is the Windhelm Pit. Windhelm was supposed to have an arena, a place where you would fight to earn your freedom. You see, the original idea was that if you were caught by a guard performing a crime in Eastmarch, instead of simply being sent to prison to live out your sentence, you would have to enter the pit to fight for your freedom. We know this because of all the unused dialogue that is found in the game. For example, Hawke Seven Swords was supposed to be the jailkeeper in the pit, the person who would explain everything to you. She would say, and I quote, "We don't just let people rot in cells until they have served their time. Here, you fight. If you win, you go free. If you lose, well, you will know the freedom of Sovngarde if you're lucky." End quote. Based on the layout of the pit, it seems that it served a similar purpose as that of the arena in the Imperial City, with people cheering from the sidelines and enjoying the spectacle. You can also find many NPCs that were made for the pit and can still be found here, but are not found outside in the playable game. If you're playing Skyrim on your computer, you can access this place by opening the command menu with the tilde button on your keyboard and typing COC space Windhelm Pit entrance. The pit was clearly not finished, but still, it is incredibly cool to see. The most interesting bit though is that it was actually possible to fight Alain Dufont in the arena. If you started the quest Morning Never Comes from Weary and still hadn't killed Alain Dufont, it was actually possible to fight him here in order to avenge Weary's honor. We know this because, once again, there is an unused dialogue option that shows us this to be the case. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope this helped you blow life into the city, knowing just a little bit more about all the crazy things that happen in the background of this place. I would also like to thank all of my patrons for supporting my channel and allowing me to continue to bring content to you guys. And special thanks to Alexander Bryson and Dylan Baker for continuing to support me with such generosity on Patreon. If you want to help me out here, keep this channel running, especially during this tumultuous time with the apocalypse, please head on over to patreon.com/MrRhexx. Any dollar counts and is greatly appreciated. Happy Halloween and good questing.